Hello and welcome to Business and Intellectual Property Centre Glasgow, here in the Mitchell Library. This year's Startup Day theme of sustainability is particularly appropriate as the city is currently hosting COP26. We are the only BIPC in Scotland, so if you are one of the thousands of people who are thinking of starting up a business here that do so every year, make BIPC Glasgow your first port of call. We provide access to specialist information covering practical aspects of setting up your business. We have special information databases and support that can help you with your intellectual property, keep you up to date with industry trends, and our specialist trained staff can support you in sourcing the right information and helping you to use that. We also work with partners who provide professional advice, sessions, workshops and events. To find out more, visit our website at glasgowlife.org.uk/BIPC or contact us at business@glasgowlife.org.uk. I'll now hand you over to the chair of today's event, Rachel Brown.
Welcome. I'm delighted that you're able to join us today at the Making a Difference, Starting and Running a Business with Environmental Impact. Today's event is part of the Business and Intellectual Property Centre Network Startup Day with funding from Santander. And we're coming from the glorious Mitchell Library, where fittingly COP26 is taking place in Glasgow this year. My name is Rachel Brown and I'm from the Future Economy Company, and I am thrilled to have three of the most engaging and influential women in social business, environmental business and startup business in Scotland today. We're going to hear from Trudy, we're going to hear from Lynn, and then we're going to hear from Fiona. So I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Trudy Donoghue, who's the founding director at Wild and Kind CIC, to tell us a bit about her story. Welcome, Trudy. It's so lovely to see you. Give us the story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So Wild and Kind, we are a community interest company based in Bridgeton in Glasgow. We've been going officially since about 2017, but we actually kind of started delivering social impact about a year before, which is what led us to becoming a community interest company. Our kind of original primary social aim was actually looking at tackling loneliness and isolation, specifically for people with marginalised gender identities. That's something that kind of came about quite organically because I was myself kind of experiencing a little bit of isolation. I was working from home for a year. I had 2 cats, and that was all I was speaking to every day. And I realised that I kind of needed a social space, but not the kind of typical, what Glasgow's like, going out and drinking, going to the cinema. I needed something that was a little bit more creative. So a friend and myself started running these free craft workshops just for people to come along to, and it just totally snowballed. We did a cookie making workshop and about 20 people showed up. It just was really, it kind of made us realise that there was a real need for these kind of safe spaces for people to just come and be themselves and meet new people outside of that, typical, I guess usually alcohol-fueled environments. So when we realised that we wanted to make this regular and essentially sustainable, we decided to set up as a kick, and the way that we decided we would generate income was through embroidery and printing. Just that was my own experience, and that was my my kind of profession before that. So environmental impact was never actually, at the very beginning, it was never really like a core aim, but obviously just being in that industry, the fashion industry itself is obviously like, one of the kind of biggest polluters. And so it was just kind of a no-brainer that we would always be looking to use organic or recycled materials and looking to use, water-based inks instead of the kind of typical plastic-based inks that are quite often used in print. So with that, environmental impact became an aim without us even really realising it. It just kind of came along quite naturally. And then the pandemic hit. We'd basically just taken this big space. We were going to be running all of our workshops. We were going to be running daily workshops. Everything was about bringing people together. And all of a sudden that had to stop. So I think a lot more of our time and energy went more towards thinking about our environmental impact. And there's lots of things that we've put in place. So for example, we are working towards becoming a zero waste studio, which for kind of fashion and production is actually quite difficult. So it's something that we're spending a lot of time and energy into figuring out. So for example, we don't send any misprinted t-shirts to landfill. Instead, we are repurposing them by turning them into yarn for people to be able to make other items with. We're also looking to be zero water waste as well, which we're close to being at the moment because we use a digital print process rather than screen printing. And we're really just looking to not only have an impact ourselves, but kind of set an example for how it can be done for other organisations too, because that's really the only way for long-term sustainability is when actually it's not just one or two places doing it well, it's everybody trying to get to that point where it's having, not the same impact as it's having at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Trudy. That was brilliant. So I'm delighted the next person we're going to hear from is Lynn Haddo, who's the co-founder of Extincts CIC. And Lynn's going to tell us a bit about their business story and journey. Lynn, welcome. Tell us all about Extincts CIC.
Thank you. Okay, we started Extincts CIC in about 2018. My husband and I had been in oil and gas, and we had travelled around a lot of the world and seen a lot of the devastation that had been happening from human activities. We were especially horrified by the waste, by the plastic pollution, by the poverty and the deforestation that was happening all over the place. We came to realise that we were part of the problem, as pretty much everyone is, and that there were unintended consequences to our actions of being in the oil and gas industry and literally flying around the world so much. So we decided to come home and try and do something about it. We wanted to spark conversations about conservation and how we should really be protecting the natural world instead of destroying it as much as we are. So we talked to a lot of people, we did a lot of research, we tried to find out how we could raise awareness that biodiversity was important and that nature should be protected. We sparked conversations with people in London, where we were when we first came back to the UK. We sparked some partnerships with other community interest companies, found out about the sustainability that was going on. And we did some research into what we could possibly do that would help and get the message out there that biodiversity and conservation is important. We went through a couple of different iterations of what we might be able to do. Jerry and I don't have kids. We are not big gamers, but we ended up in creating a kids game that would educate them about endangered animals. We wanted to raise funds for conservation charities, and we found some people who were thinking like us. We got together, we made the game Extincts, which works like a digital collectibles app. We also got into ethical t-shirt printing, which was an extra merch way of going through to get the word out there and tell people about, start conversations with people, because it's always good fun to talk about what's on your t-shirt. So in 2018, we set up the company. We learned a lot about running a business and being digital business. We did a good 10-week course with the Business and IP Centre here at the Mitchell Library, which was amazing. We launched our app on Earth Day in 2019. And the merch came along about 6 months later, and we've been making money from them happily to donate to our conservation charity beneficiaries. The impact that we've had so far with Extincts has been incredible. It's been great listening to people. The gamers are fantastic, and they are sparking conversations with their friends, with their families, and it's getting conservation on the table, which is really what we were aiming to do. So, yeah.
Magic. It sounds brilliant. I have to say, I'm totally sold on the t-shirts, buying all of the t-shirts.
They're ethical, they're sustainable, they're
I got
organic.
it. I'm in.
You send them back when they're finished, they don't go to landfill.
I'm in, and I love how you can educate and talk. There's a little bit at the bottom that tells you exactly who's on your t-shirt, where they are on the endangered list, and all that stuff. And just for anybody else who wants to get involved, Lynn mentioned there that the Business and Intellectual Property Centre run programmes. We've been saying CIC quite a lot. So if you don't know what a community interest company is and you want to find out, or you want to get more information, more resources, or more just general support and backing for your ideas, then come and see us here at the Mitchell Library. We'll be delighted to see you when we're able to. I'm pretty sure there's loads of stuff online. Google everything, you will find it all out. But this is an amazing resource for Glasgow, so please utilise it. Lynn, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I always get really excited listening to Lynn because I like hearing the connection between oil and gas and the change of behaviour and the change of just, I'm going to set my own business and deal with this. Love it. What's not to like? So I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Fiona Lindsay, who's Technical Director at Reblade Circular Solutions. Now, Fiona, I don't know much about Reblade. It sounds like an incredible business. Tell us, what is your story?
Well, Reblade has really been born out of the need to sustainably decommission turbine blades. I've worked in renewables for about 13 and a half years now. I worked in construction before that, so I have a good understanding of the sort of engineering and technical capacity of wind turbines. I started at the very beginning of the process, whereby we're looking to consent and construct turbines in the UK for green energy. And those were the first generation of wind farms that we started to see popping up in the landscape. Now these turbines are getting to sort of mid-age, to the point where they're becoming at the end of their useful working operational lives. But they weren't designed with sustainability and recycling in mind. They were designed to generate energy and to basically turn for literally millions of miles and be aerodynamic and durable. So the fiberglass material that they're made of is incredibly hard to decommission when they come down. But what we are going to see is thousands of these turbines coming down over the next 5 to 10 years. And they can't go to landfill. So basically my sort of point today is to make that, where did wind turbine blades go to die? And to date, that has been to landfill where they do not decompose. The plastic polymer material and the fiberglass will last for a very long time. And to date, this hasn't really been an issue because we've not needed to decommission them, but now we need taller turbines. They need to be more efficient, and there'll probably be less of them in the landscape. So it's a good story. We're working towards net zero, but at the other side of it, there is going to be a landfill issue if we don't do something about it. So Reblade, we have 3 sort of main core areas to our mission statement. We want zero landfill where we can. We're working towards that. We want to be able to repurpose blades at the moment, and that's really the first phase of our business plan. We're using the fiberglass to make new products. So we have podiums, tables, outdoor furniture. We have a bike shelter that we're just finishing at the moment. But we can't cover the length and breadth of the country in bike shelters and repurpose fiberglass. We need to find a bigger solution for the thousands of turbines that will come down over the next few years and to the end of the decade. So we're collaborating with academia and industry to find innovative and creative ways to repurpose the fiberglass. And that's hard because if you have a look on this slide here, you'll see the fibrous material of the blade. Now, the blades on the left, that is prior to us cutting them up on site in situ, and the blade at the bottom right there, you can see that the really tough fibrous material of the fiberglass, literally glued in hundreds and hundreds of laminations with an epoxy glue. And it makes it, if you can imagine, if you had a whole house filled with wood chip and you had to try and take that wood chip off the walls, it would literally take you a couple of years. And if you can expand that to the thousands of turbines up and down the country that need to come down, how do you actually release the fiberglass material from the epoxy resin? So at the moment, first phase is to make our products. And here's an example of some of them. So we have a unit that we've got our turbine blade materials stored at, and we're repurposing them into useful new second life objects. And at the moment, we're really focused on podiums, and there's a lot of interest in those with COP26. The podium in the middle is the tip, that's quite obvious, and the one on the right is the leading edge. And what we'll do with these new products is, we can actually put a QR code on them and let people find out, this turbine has generated X amount of renewable energy. The carbon offset is this. It's flown, literally you're going into millions of miles in terms of its form or life. And here's another couple of examples. Here's our tables and bookshelves. We don't quite have we're literally working on the bike shelters at the moment. They're massive, and we're getting a steel frame made for those. So I don't have a picture for you at the moment, but literally as of tomorrow, we probably would have that for you. And so what's ahead for Reblades? Again, projecting the amount of turbines that will come down because, well, they have to, because they're getting to a point where it's not economical to run them. And the materials are at the end of their lives. Most of them will be replanted with larger turbines and more efficient wind farms, because that has to happen for net zero environment in the future. And that gives us, a really busy time ahead. So at the moment, we just started this year. Reblade is not even one yet. We need to expand, and we need to grow, and we need to find new and bigger ways of dealing with the material, which is probably going to be shredders and real big capital expenditure items. It's a family business. It's myself. My husband's worked in renewables for a long time as well, just as long as I have. And at the moment, it's just the two of us. But that will change. And everybody who works for us at the moment are contractors. And at some point, it would be much more efficient business-wise to have everybody working for us and have our units that aren't rented but are actually ours. So there's a lot of investment ahead of us. And I'm just going to leave it on basically the 17 goals that everybody needs to be objectified now. And that's a picture of my daughter, because I couldn't leave it out because my son's in the former slide. We need to consider, James Lovelock's I'm a geologist, that's my background, and we need to really consider his message in that, geological time, it takes thousands of years to make a change in the environment, but mankind has made an impact so that we're seeing those changes in years rather than what you would normally see, which is, millennia. And we don't have time to wait. The action needs to take place now. And that is really the sort of core value of where our business is founded on.
Thank you so much, Fiona. That was brilliant. Really
Thank you.
interesting. I'm hugely inspired. I can't tell you. Sitting in a room with three brilliant women, listening to your stories of how you started business, how you're pushing forward, how you're realising your impacts. It's really inspiring. It really is. And I know everybody watching here will be incredibly motivated to go and do something. And that kind of brings me on to some of the questions I want to ask. Trudy, your business, as you said, you started 2017. You've been sort of wielding your way through. It's been up, it's been down, it's been roundabout. But actually, you've got a real sense of purpose, real impact, genuine impact on the ground. If somebody else wanted to start a business like yours that has multiple impacts, what would be your tips?
I've got about 1,000, but I'll try and whittle them down. So I think the biggest things that I guess I'd kind of struggled with in the past that I'm feeling more confident with now is there will never be a perfect balance of business and social impact. Some weeks, some months, you're not going to be delivering any social impact and it's all about the business and vice versa. And that's okay, because I think a lot of people in the early stages, it's really stressful because it's already hard enough as it is to start a business. Trying to do both is even more difficult. I think that can be off-putting for people, and I think it stops people from actually achieving what they want to achieve because they think, actually I don't have time to do that anymore. It's okay if it comes and goes. Another tip when first getting started is definitely to find as many kind of support networks as possible, whether that is business support from your kind of local authority, funding support. There's, especially just now, there actually are quite a lot of startup support funds, and even just Facebook groups and stuff like that as well. I love a Facebook group, so every time I need something, I find a Facebook group for it, and then I've immediately got my own little support network there. So this kind of advice and experience of others is absolutely what will push forward, and it's just kind of putting yourself out there, talking to every single person that will listen about what you're doing, and eventually you will build that kind of community around you.
I mean, networking isn't something that a lot of people are a fan of.
Yeah.
Have you had to work hard at that?
I'm quite a chatty person, to be honest. That is something that does come a little bit more naturally to me. I do quite like meeting people and I like talking to people. The advice I would have for people that don't have that instinctually, because again, quite a lot of the people that we work with, a lot of our beneficiaries have social anxiety. Find those online spaces first. Find somebody to take along with you to an event that is going to be able to help you start those conversations, because a lot of the time you have to go up and just say hi to somebody that you don't know. So it's finding the people that can, again, it's that support network, finding the people that can do that either for you or with you at the beginning to help ease you into that, because with practice, it just becomes kind of second nature. So, and if anybody in Glasgow needs help with that, you can come to me.
Great. You heard it there. You heard it there. The door is open for Trudy.
Yeah,
Love
there
it.
you
You're
go.
absolutely right. But I think it is a big step
Yeah.
going forward for people to jump in to areas they've not done before. And actually, Lynn, you're the perfect example of that. You came from oil and gas and you leapt into gaming, just, as you do. But there must be some real challenges there. And I know that your job previously was probably high pressured and very stressful, but the challenges for Extinct CIC will be different. What keeps you up at night? What are the things that kind of whirl around your head in terms of your business?
Oh, jings. That's a lot.
Could we go up? We've only got a few minutes.
I just want to echo what Judy was saying there as well, though. Your networks are definitely where you're going to find all your power. You can't do it yourself. It doesn't matter what you do, you can't do it yourself. And other people always have that inspiration and that kind of information and what you don't know somebody else does. What keeps me up at night? More that, what on earth am I doing? I was never a gamer. I don't even like games that much. Like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to be in this space? And the fact is that I'm trying. It is starting conversations, even if it starts a conversation with people who have the idea of like, this is rubbish. Have you seen what this is happening? It's rubbish, but they're still talking about it.
Sure.
We try to make our products as safe as possible for kids as well, to make sure that they're not getting addicted to it, because the gaming industry as well, there's a lot of flashing lights and rubbish music, and trying to make sure that doesn't happen. So we've got a game that we're trying not to make addictive. People want them to play it. It's a bit of an oxymoron type thing, but it's wondering how much we give 70% of our profits to conservation charities at the moment. The other 30% goes back into the business, and it's wondering how much money we need to invest in. How big does the game need to get? Do we need to go down the whole roadmap of virtual reality, where you can get into the forests and start actually helping the animals back into their natural habitats and all those wonderful things that we could do? Or is it actually better to spend those hundreds of thousands of pounds on the conservation charities and the guys that are on the ground actually doing the work? And things like that keep me up.
It's quite a good problem to have, though, isn't it? It's don't get me started. I'm like, get me the VR. I'm all over that in the forest. I'd love that.
It's good.
Oh, Fiona, I'm really fascinated by your business, and one of the things that springs to mind is picking up on Trudy and Lynn's points. Is how do you find the resources to even start that? Who helps you with that? Have you had any tips and tricks of people that have been supportive along your journey?
I have. This is the first time I've started a limited company, same for my husband. So we're, complete greenhorns newbies in this regard. I've worked in a big industry before, big companies where you have separate departments who work out finance, marketing. I've never had to think about anything other than my own area of specialism. And I've been quite out of depth with some of those areas. And when I came to BIPC, I quickly realised there was a lot of support available that I didn't know about. And the three main areas that have really helped me, intellectual property, so making sure our business is protected. That was the first thing that supported me from BIPC, and probably one of the most important. Secondly, the accounting side of things. I'm not great at that, although I've been used to managing, multi-million-pound budgets for forecasting. I don't know the ins and outs of HMRC, and I actually don't really want to. So getting advice from an accountant through BRPC and little nuggets of advice from them have now led me on to having our own accountant and finding a good one, which is also really important, because that, if the accounts don't work for the business and the business doesn't work, we have to invest our own money into this, and we've found it quite hard finding support for startups because of coronavirus. It's all been about keeping businesses alive, so it's our own money that's been invested. And that leads on to the third element, which was marketing. And I did think before I started out that we need to spend a lot on marketing, because that's your business and that's your business plan getting out there. And quickly realised through support through BIPC that actually you can do it on a shoestring. And we've been using those support mechanisms to put out the social media information, and those have really taken off, much more than I think if we'd actually spent some money and taken on a marketing expert. So it's been fantastic and really saved us a lot of money where we haven't had much to spend in the first place.
Brilliant, brilliant. So our top tips are your network is your power. reach out, ask for support, ask for help. And I think for you guys, just keep going. All of you have just talked about your journey as if, well, I did this and I did that. Just absolutely keep going, invest in yourselves, and your ideas are incredible. I look forward to following all of your journeys and supporting you as much as we can. And at the Business and Intellectual Centre here, please do reach out. There's tons of resources. People want to help you be successful in your business. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. It's been incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.